Welcome to video number 8 in my first chapter of building the world for my ActionRPG project in Unity. In this video, we're going to actually set up 3 new scenes, and we're going to see how to actually kind of build a new scene from scratch. We're not going to link them together yet, and I'm going to load a new tile set so we can see, get a quick review about building new tile sets. So let's begin. The first scene I want to build is the mine, because I think with this mine, what I can really achieve is just a single room scene, so we can see a scene where the camera doesn't move at all. It's not going to try to follow the player. So I'm going to make a new folder inside of my textures tile sets, create a new folder called mine. And I'm going to bring in my mine texture sheets. I mean, I could bring in all 4 of these if I want to. Drop it in here. And from there, we can start kind of slicing them up to be another tile map palette. So in case we forgot, the other one, my other grassland one here, it was 128 for the sizes. So I'm going to go to mine, pixels per unit, 128. Actually, no, before I even do that, you can actually do multiples of these simultaneously. If you select multiples, and then I change these to 128, turn off the filter, and I can actually switch them all to multiple, and then hit apply. It actually will change all of these simultaneously, which is convenient. But I want to do the mine, none of the color shifts, just this regular one. Go to Sprite Editor, and from here, I'm going to slice it using cell size. And I believe these are 128, but if that doesn't look right, no, that is correct. So we've got a couple weird oddities, like these little half ledges. I'm not going to go through and prune out the ones that I don't like. That could be a project. If I was going to spend a lot of time on something like this, maybe I would. But it looks fine for how it is. And again, if I need to go through and play with the collisions, so like if I were to use this pit, it might be worth my while to hit apply. And then I could actually go through and kind of play with the physics shape here. Because at least if I was going to use this pit, I'd probably need to add a few extra points on here, just to kind of clean up these corners. That way this pit feels a little bit more, manageable. It's kind of the same thing that we had with the water ledge, so that if we wanted to use a pit like this, we can. So I'm not going to edit all of them on camera. I am actually going to do them off camera, so that if I use the pit, they will all have a smoother collider that's a little bit closer to the edge, like that. All right, so let's exit this, and let's build our tile palette for the mine. So we go to 2D tile palette, and we don't want to put it onto the grassland tile palette, so I'm just going to go over to this little drop down, and I'm going to say create a new palette. The name of this palette is going to be mine, and I'm not going to change anything else. I'm just going to hit create. So it wants to save it somewhere. That's going to be saved under textures, tile sets, mine. Just select that folder. And I'm going to drag on this mine into it. And now it wants to save all of the tiles. So this is where I'm going to go to tile sets, mine, and I called the folder tiles. So I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to make a new folder called tiles. I'm going to choose that folder, select folder, and it is going to create, I don't know, hundreds or so files right now. Sadly, I can't see the progress bar. There it goes. And so now that is finished. So we've got my mine tile set ready to go, and I can swap between my tile palettes very easily. And we will close that. And again, like I did with Grassland, let's build a tile atlas for this. Sprite atlas, I'm sorry. So right-click on mine, create 2D sprite atlas. And I call it mine atlas. And I'm going to add one. I'm just going to click player 3 like I did last time, and then I'm going to drag and drop the mine that I chose. If you were going to use multiple ones, then you could, but then build the pack preview so it starts packing those tiles. Bear in mind, if I go back through and edit some of the physics shapes, I do believe it will need to recalculate the tile atlas, but that's a problem for another time. So we've got my tile atlas ready, and now we're ready to build a new scene. And so let's rename my scene. It's been called sample scene since I've started. So let's hit save to make sure that it save changes. And I'm going to rename this to Overworld. Following has been changed. Do you wish to reload the scene? Yes. And you can see that the name has changed up here to Overworld. Now let's make a new scene. I gotta do it through here. Create new scene. I'm gonna call this Mine 1. Probably could have called it Cave 1 too, but you know what? I'll call it Cave 1. The name will matter because that's actually how we're gonna handle the transition. So don't make your name too hard to type. There can be spaces in it because it'll be a string. So Cave 1 is my new scene. So let's jump over to that. And you can see that there is nothing here except for a main camera. But I've already been building my own camera, so I am going to delete their existing camera, and I am going to put my camera back in. So I've got my main camera with all the settings and the scripts that I wanted. So now we've got to redo the tile map. And unfortunately, this is probably the least elegant part of how we do this. And remember, ground is the most important name for that. We name this the tile maps. Because ground is what we're going to be using to pull the size of the level. We need a few more tile maps. And we can add them as we need. So I'll just do ground, I'll do details. I will do another one called blocking low. Now, if I want to go back to see how I spelled the other one, if I try to jump over to Overworld, you'll notice that it asks me to save, and that's because I am unloading this scene, so I do want to save it. And I do want to match the spelling. I did it with an underscore. So we'll do this with an underscore. So we've got ground, detail, blocking low. We'll do blocking high. And we'll do one called, it's treetops, call it roof. So ground, let's bump that to like -100. Details, -80. Blocking low, -50. Blocking high, -25. And then roof, we want this to appear on top of everything, so we're going to go with 31,000. Blocking low, we do need to switch the layer to ground, because remember, flying things should be able to go over a low blocking thing. And we can add paths if we wanted to. It really depends on the tile set. So like if I look at the tile palette, I could probably afford, there's some path-like things here. So you know what, we'll add a path layer. And I want it to be under the details, so let's put it here. Ground was at -100, details was at -80, so paths will be -90. there's a lot of flexibility in how you choose to set up these tile maps. Really, the only thing that matters is that ground is the entire stretch of how big this thing is. And so let's build a ground. So that we can see the camera is right here. So I'm going to use the ability to paint a rectangle, and I want to paint this on the ground layer. Let's paint something that's not the entire size of the camera, so that way we've got some edges so we can actually see the camera not moving. It's a scene that's not the entire size of the camera. So there's my ground. Let's do the blocking high, which are going to be the walls. The quick way would be to switch to the paint, grab a corner, let's paint the corners in here. Remember that I did I did want to paint my blocking high on the actual ground, because if you paint it over here, the camera doesn't consider that as part of its bounds and its restrictions. And so we're just painting our scene. That's going to be kind of crooked, I guess, because the exits here are kind of big. All right, so that's our ground so far. Roof, I think I probably want to put this tile on the roof because we want that to be above the player. Details would be this little bit of shadow. Just double check that it is painting on the correct tile maps. We can put a quick pit on blocking low. Just better select that. I think you can move these. Yeah. So if you want to move your pit around, and then we can put a quick path over here with as much of a path as we can do with these pieces. I mean, I guess we could run it into the wall like that. And so now we've got just a quick path. Nothing too elaborate. A lot of these diagonal pieces. And boom. That is one completed path. Now I think, yeah. So the shadow is on the details layer, which is going to appear above the path layer. So that should look good. And then we can even just put this here just to be on the safe side. Make sure we've got, you know, the path through there. And so we've got a little kind of dirt path. We got a blocking layer, so we can test all of our different blocking layers. Details, we can throw on. See, like this rock would probably make a better doodad. You could probably put that rock on like a blocking layer if you really wanted to. But I'll put some details down, like these little rocks. Almost feel like that should just completely block the player. But again, that strikes me as like a good doodad thing. Those look like fences. Well, I guess we'll just put a few mushrooms down. Maybe a few rocks over here. We can actually borrow from the other one as well. not that these match, but you could put things from other tile sets on this. You're not really restricted to just the one. All right, so we've got our thing. Maybe on blocking high we can put this. Put like a little torch. There we go. So we've painted a quick room here. I'm going to exit my tile painter. And the last thing that we really need to actually kind of complete setting up a room is we do need to put a player in here. Now this does seem a little bit weird that we are going to drop a player into every scene that the player is going to occupy. But that's okay. We are actually going to store anything that we need to keep track of on a different on a different layer, or on a different like system. Like the player is expendable. If the player gets deleted, we're not going to store anything permanent on this player. So looks good. Snap that a little bit better. All right. So we got the player in a position. We have the camera. The player is loaded from the prefab, so any changes would persist. We can even hit save, and we can play test this level, technically, and you know we can move around inside of it and wonder what I did wrong with a couple of these things. So, the core thing that I had forgotten to do, aside from my terrible painting of the tiles, is I forgot to put my colliders on these. So while it does have the correct physics layer, I never put my tile map collider 2D on this, and then I never put my composite collider, my 2D composite collider. I have to tell the tile map 2D to be used by composite. Rigid body would be better as static, and nothing else really needs to change on that, on blocking low. Need to do the same thing to blocking high. Give it a tile map collider, and then give it a physics 2D composite collider. That inserts the rigid body, set the rigid body to static, and tell this that it's used by composite. And then we just gotta fix this little painting here. My corner got messed up. And now we can play test it again. See, that's important to play test to these things. And so now you can see that I am correctly colliding on top of everything. And I can even leave the outside of the level. But importantly, there's no errors. If you look down the bottom, there's no errors there. And the camera isn't trying to follow the player. So overall, it looks pretty good. The only thing I could possibly see fixing is here maybe adding some stuff on the roof layer, including leaving those on the blocking high. But if I go to paint tile palette, if I want to go paint these onto my roof layer, get this part, that whole like ledge, and then I can paint that, which should help with the player bleeding through the side of that. And so you can see the player's hair is not sticking through it anymore. Again, the player shouldn't ever be out here, so we don't need to worry about that. All right, so we've got this scene set up, and I'm happy with that. There's nothing else we need to do. We'll eventually revisit it. We could put an invisible wall if we want to. Let's reset this thing's transform. Bring it down here. Give it a physics 2D box collider. So if we really wanted to kind of keep the player or, monsters from sneaking out the back of here, I don't need to change its layer because we decided that layer, default, is kind of our tall layer. And so now we can keep the player and or monsters from sneaking out the bottom of the level. All right, so we're good with that. And I'm going to just quickly create the scene, and I'm not going to go into much detail of building the east and the west. I will build those a little bit more elaborately off camera, however. So let's save this scene. And now we've basically seen the entire process for building a new scene. So I'm going to go back to Overworld. And now I've got to build a one that's like right off the bottom here and one that's off to the east. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to create a new scene. And I'm going to call this Overworld South. And let's load that up. We don't need that main camera. We want to bring ours in from the prefab. Which actually did remind me though. Let's save this. If we jump back over to the cave, I did forget to attach the map. I did add that code that'll help catch it, but still, let's at least put the map there. And we don't want it to follow the player because we don't want it to track the player at all. But this way, at least, it still can calculate the edges of the bounds. Right, so back to Overworld South. So we're back here. We do our usual of creating our tile maps. Ground layer. Paths. Details. Blocking low. Blocking high. And treetops. Now, the other one did have a bridge, and so I would add a bridge if I needed a bridge. Because these aren't set in stone. This is just my logical construction order. So ground is negative 100. Paths, negative 90. Details, negative 80. Blocking low, negative 50. Blocking high, negative 25. And treetops, 31,000. So it's above everything else. Let's not forget the importance thing of adding our colliders. Now, we may have to rebuild the colliders if we paint some of the level. So tile map, collider 2D, physics 2D, composite collider, tell it to be used by composite, set the rigid body to static, same, and then switch this to be on the ground layer. Blocking high, same deal. We need a tile map collider. Then we need a composite collider. And at that point, we've got all that set up. Main camera can link the ground now. So we want the map to be ground. We can even put the player in right now. And we can link the player to the follow for the camera. And at that point, I think it's playable. Well, aside from the fact that it's all black. Let's see. I guess let's get some, oh, there's no tile, so the camera just got mad. We need just a basic board to walk on. So let's bring up our palette, and I'm going to switch it over to the grassland palette, and I'm going to paint some basic grass across everything. This is actually the tile for 0, 0 right here. Right next, because if the camera is centered, this is the 0, 0 tile, in case you did want the bottom of your thing to be orientated at 0, 0. So like, we can just paint that real fast. throw the player on it. My player is appearing behind things. That is weird. Could just be a glitch with Unity though, because I didn't do anything different. So if this is going to choose to act weird or strange, like the fact that this ground is pulling up in front of everything, which it really shouldn't with a -100. Let's just save the project. Let's close Unity. And I'm just going to reopen it real fast. You know, sometimes these things could happen to it. The other thing that I'm suspecting is maybe I painted all that on the treetop layer, which I did. Yeah. Sometimes Unity does get weird, but yeah, so the problem is I painted actually all this on the treetop layer. So let's just go clean that up. Sadly, I don't think there's a faster way to clean off the... But let's go make the ground layer that same size. Let's go paint the ground to be that. And then turn off the ground layer so we can see what I need to erase here on the treetops. And then just erase all that. I mean, these mistakes do happen. It's good to see. Now I'll return back to the ground layer and re-show the ground layer. Repaint part of it. Erase this part here. Now, that actually leads me to the next thing that I should care about with the tiles, and that is compressing the tile map. So, like, with this thing's tile map, it's actually... I wonder if I can actually get the size pulled up here. Sadly, no. We'll want to go to the option for compressed tile map bounds, because then that gets rid of what I had erased there. And same with the treetop layer, I'm going to tell it to compress the tile map bounds. But with those things inserted, the player should be functional on this layer. Yeah, it's like, it feels like you're colliding, but it's actually walking the length of it. So, put the player somewhere. Now, what I recommend to get this lined up right, hit save, is if you go back to your old one here, I recommend using snipping tool and taking screenshots of the edges. So like if I'm trying to reproduce this, click on grid so it puts the grid overlay on there, use snipping tool and just take a quick screenshot of that. And so when you're building your next map, so when I'm going to Overworld South, maybe I shrink down Unity a little bit and I put my picture like up here. And so now when I'm painting the top of this, I can more accurately get all of that done right. So I can use my tile palette, and I can see that just starting with a path at least, the path begins 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And so I have my path there. The path has 2 tiles of plane, and then it's got its edge. Then I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 before I hit the water tile. So let's go switch this to blocking low, and then we can paint this edge. So we've got 4 tiles till we have that. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 5 in between. 1, 2, 5, like that. We can put the water on here. And then we had a fence and we had this other different color of grass. So the fence is still on blocking low. Fence came right in here. And then continued for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 tiles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So I guess I might need to consider making the ground go slightly larger. And then maybe putting this on the path layer, that kind of dark green that came in after 2. And so with that, I was able to kind of reproduce, and then I got to do that tree layer, so that would be on blocking high. So I'm going to put that edge of that tree. So there are some like trees along the side here. And then I'm going to get the closing part of that tree right there. And then on treetops, I'll just put the edges of these trees. Don't really need to go up that high on that tree. So from the looks of it, I've recreated the bottom edge of that map on this map. Now, they don't have to be the same size, because like I can't transition off of here. But it does help if you want to keep them the same size, or at least have part of it match. Because like if you don't, like it'll look weird if you have just totally different terrain. And so we can hit save. Let's go test to make sure all of this works. This issue here, I might need to put part of the tree on the treetop layer to prevent my hair from sticking through it. So if I go back to the tile painter, and then I just put part of the tree, like that, on treetops, that will help prevent my player's head from sticking through it. So that works. The map is scrolling appropriately to the edges. We've got our bounds here. I've got my low bounds there. And all that is kind of in the same spot. So off camera, I'm going to build the rest of this, and I'm also going to build the east side using the same principles. So we have 2 levels to begin working on the transitions. So before you watch the next video, you should build the overworld east, is what I'm going to call it. I'm going to actually create it right now. Scene overworld east. And I'm going to build all of that using the same exact process that I've built this. So if you just want to rewatch me building the overworld south and just doing it for overworld east, that will work. But I will see you next video once we have all this finished, and we will get the transitions up and running. Don't forget the hidden invisible colliders. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.